Welcome to Secret Agenda YouTube channel. We are about to fill the 9th month of the war, in which the heroes of Ukraine were epic. In this war, in which the Russian troops were devastated, especially in the last period, the Kiev army succeeded in taking back many occupied homelands from the Russians. Zelensky's heroic soldiers, thanks to their extraordinary dawn operations, sudden raids, airstrikes, and ground operations, have now managed to put the Russian forces under a tight grip. We saw the best example of this in the past days in the Kherson region. When we come to today, the heroes of Ukraine have managed to add a new one to this series of victories we have mentioned. This time, the address was the Luhansk region of Ukraine. As a result of the impressive dawn operations, the Ukrainian armed forces liberated 12 settlements in the Luhansk region from Russian invaders, but fierce fighting continues in the region. The head of the Luhansk Regional Military Administration, Serhiy Haidai, spoke on Ukraine's Freedom TV channel about the details of the successful operation of the brave Kiev army. Haidai explained that the heroes of Ukraine are slowly starting to take over after the fierce fighting in the Luhansk region. About the Luhansk victory of the Ukrainian fighters, Luhansk official Haidai said, "The Ukrainian armed forces liberated 12 settlements in the Luhansk region from the invaders. Bialohorivka is under constant bombardment and attacks by the Russian army." According to the head of the Luhansk Regional Military Administration, Serhiy Haidai, the Ukrainian artillery has long-range weapons, which greatly facilitates the situation on the front line and allows them to solve the problems behind the invading troops. This gives the heroes of Kiev a great advantage against the invading troops on the southern fronts. Haidai stated that the Ukrainian artillery skillfully used the legendary US-made missile systems HIMARS, allowing them to protect new front lines around the recently liberated settlements, which reportedly included the village of Makiivka. Also, Ukrainian soldiers testified that as part of their strategy to retake and maintain control of these areas, they used Polish-made Krab self-propelled guns, which allowed the invading troops to destroy Russian targets and separate their infantry. Tactics make Russian troops and positions more vulnerable to ground attacks on the Luhansk and Donetsk border. During the discussion, Serhiy Haidai revealed how the Russian forces intensified their attacks on the recently liberated villages, namely that the Ukrainian forces are now working to evacuate as many people as possible from the newly liberated towns. The Ukrainian official also claimed that most of the Russian soldiers fighting in the same areas were Wagners, suggesting that they were private mercenaries working for the Wagner Group. Stating that the Wagner Group continues its armed actions in this region, Haidai said, "Also, the Russians are firing heavily on the recently liberated villages, so we are trying to evacuate people from there." Earlier reports from the Ukrainian government indicated that the Ukrainian army had regained control of the village of Makaivka in the Luhansk region. The spokesperson of the Luhansk Regional Military Administration said the village of Makiivka, located in the Krasno-Rychenska community of the Svatove district, Luhansk region, passes into the blue zone. The Ukrainian army has regained control of the settlement. Many opinions have been put forward regarding the attitude of the Russians on these defeats. According to some political analysts, after the crushing defeats in Luhansk, the Russians will not leave the region without a fight. Although the Ukrainian army has made significant gains in Luhansk and even regained control of the city of Kherson, it's argued that Russia still has more troops to send to Ukraine. Tens of thousands of Russian reservists have already been deployed to Ukraine. Also, allegedly, hundreds of thousands of Russian soldiers are still training to fight in Ukraine. When these reservists arrive on the battlefield, it's stated that it will harm the Ukrainian army's ability to repel and retake territory liberated in recent weeks and months. In an opinion piece for Euractiv, Ukrainian political analyst Roman Rukomeda argued last week that the liberation of Kherson by the brave Kiev army is a sign that more events are to come. Rukomedia said after Kherson, it will be Donetsk, Luhansk, and Zaporizhia, then Crimea. Or depending on how the situation will develop on the battlefield, Crimea may come first, followed by Donbass. The Ukrainian analyst also noted that there is a positive mood among Ukrainians despite ongoing problems, including power cuts and lack of water in some major urban areas. After the extraordinary victories of Kiev's unstoppable army, the Ukrainian government made an important decision on border security. Kyrylo Tymoshenko, deputy head of the Office of the President of Ukraine, announced that a fortification will be built on the border with Belarus. Tymoshenko said a fortification wall will be built in the Volyn region on the border with Belarus. This is one of the elements of engineering barriers set up to protect our border. Of course, work does not continue only in Volyn. These precautionary preparations are valid for all regions bordering Belarus and Russia. During a study trip to the Volyn region, Vice President Tymoshenko visited the district hospital, noting that the region has a modern, well-equipped facility that can provide high-quality and timely medical care. Aid packages were also delivered to the soldiers stationed in the region. Also, Kirilo Tymoshenko shared the information that the construction of the walls on the Belarusian border was carried out by regional authorities and enterprises. The measures taken by Ukraine against the Russians began to increase, especially after the missile incident in Poland. These events, which greatly disturb Eastern Europe, do not fall on the agenda of not only Ukraine but also many countries. The latest sanction decisions taken at the G20 summit against the aggressive and unfair attitudes of the Russians were of great importance. The final declaration of the G20 summit was published, and according to it, most of the members strongly condemned the war in Ukraine. In addition, according to this declaration, Russia's unconditional withdrawal was demanded. The declaration states that the use or threat of nuclear weapons is unacceptable. Expressions such as "today's age should not be the age of war" were used in the text approved by the leaders, who demanded the unconditional withdrawal of Russia, which continues its attacks on infrastructure in Ukraine. The importance of the decision to support the multilateral system that protects international law, peace, and stability was mentioned. In the G20 text, there are also provisions that we will mention now. This includes adherence to the principles of the United Nations Charter and international human rights law, including the protection of civilians and infrastructure in armed conflicts. The use or threat of nuclear weapons is unacceptable. The peaceful resolution of conflicts, the continuation of diplomacy, and dialogue are vital. The age of today should not be the age of war. These were recorded as some decisions in the accepted declaration. War restrains growth, increases inflation, disrupts supply chains, escalates energy and food insecurity, and raises risks to financial stability, the declaration said. There are also different views and assessments regarding the situation and sanctions. While noting that the G20 is not a forum to solve security problems, the awareness that security problems can have important consequences on the global economy was also included. At this summit, it was noted that they are deeply concerned about the current developments in global food security, and they have committed to take urgent measures, especially for fragile countries. In addition, in the G20 final declaration, it was stated that the Istanbul Agreement, mediated by Turkey and the UN, was highly beneficial. The importance of the relevant parties to implement this agreement on time and on an ongoing basis was also emphasized. There are many opinions that the sanctions against the Russians will increase as the war progresses. These sanctions will exhaust both the Moscow administration and the Russian army. On the other hand, Ukrainian heroes will turn this situation to their advantage and move towards new gains. To be notified of new videos, please do not forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. Thank you for watching us.